Okay, for 39, they want us to solve by any method. So let's start with A. So we have 100,000, right? 10,000. 1, 2, 3, 4, 10,000. Right? They should really put commas there. Okay, x squared minus 64 equals 0. A couple ways we could do this. I think it's easiest when you just have the one quadratic term is to add 64 to both sides, divide by 10,000, and then divide both sides by 10,000, right? So we get x squared equals, what would that be, 0.064, right? And then take the square root of both sides, and we get x equals plus or minus 0.064. So x equals plus or minus 0.08 for A. Okay, let's do B. Let's make some space. For B, we have a quadratic, right? So let's write it 9x squared. I'm going to add 34x to both sides, plus 34x minus 8 equals 0. Okay, so let's say you couldn't factor this with columns, you wanted to use decomposition. We would take the first term and the last term and multiply them and get negative 72x squared, right? So what times what is negative 72, but added gives me 34. So that would be negative 2x and 36x, right? 36 minus 2 is 34, multiplied is negative 72. So now the middle term we decompose, right? We make it minus 2x and then plus 36x, right? And then we put our parentheses, we group, right? And out of the first two terms, I can only factor an x out, and I'm left with 9x minus 2. Out of the second one, I can factor a 4 out, and I'm left with 9x minus 2. And now I factor the 9x minus 2 out, and I'm left with x plus 4, right? X plus 4. So that means that I'm going to come all the way up to the top here. Either 9x minus 2 equals 0, or x plus 4 equals 0. So 9x equals 2, x equals 2/9. Here x equals negative 4, negative 4. So we get negative 4 and 2/9 as solutions to B, right? This was part B. Okay, let's make some space for C. So C, we have 2x squared minus 4x plus 7 equals 0. So first I try to factor. Let me see, 2x squared and 7. No matches are going to factor. So let's try a different approach. Let's try, I don't know, for fun, completing the square, right? Let's complete the square on this. So I'm going to bring my constant over to the right. I'm going to get my a to be 1, so I'm going to divide both sides by 2 and get x squared, x squared minus 2x equals negative 7/2. Then I'm going to take half the middle term, right, which is negative 1, and square it and add it to both sides, plus 1. So this is going to be plus 1, which is 2/2, right? So now the left-hand side factors to x minus 1 squared equals negative 5/2. Now, right here, I can look at this and see that I have something squared, which I need to take the square root of, equals a negative number. I can't take the square root of a negative number and get a real number solution, so we can stop and say no solution for C. Okay, now let's do D. For D, we have 3.2x plus 0.2x squared minus 5 equals 0. Let's rearrange to put it the quadratic term first. 0.2x squared plus 3.2x minus 5 equals 0. Let's change things up here. Let's use the quadratic formula just for fun, right? So A is, I'm going to write it up here. A is 0.2. B is 3.2. And C is negative 5. So x equals negative b plus or minus b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So now let's substitute it. Negative b is negative 0.2 plus or minus 0.2 squared minus 4 times, negative b. Whoa, I made a mistake here. Okay, let's substitute in again. Before I made a mistake. Okay, negative b is negative 3.2 plus or minus b squared, which is 3.2 squared, minus 4 times 0.2 times c, which is negative 5, right? All over 2 times 0.2. Okay, now I'm going to come up here and I'm going to simplify, right? So it's x equals negative 3.2 plus or minus, right? The square root of 14.24 all over 0.4, right? So this comes out to x equals negative 3.2 plus or minus the square root of 14.24 is approximately, right, 3.77, approximately 3.77. I would then leave it. It's not a perfect square. I would leave the answer exactly like that. I know the text is probably going to write it as an approximate decimal value, but I would rather leave it as an exact value. So unless that radical is a perfect square, I don't want to change that to decimal form.